to think of something, or something's gonna have to happen later for the teaser.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
I have noodles and you have my beautiful sister.
I guess that works. Okay. Well, hello and welcome back. I'm really excited to talk to you this week about the book Love by Leo Buscaglia. So this is kind of one of those books that has been in my life for a while, but no, it was not sitting quietly in the back of my bookcase. It was actually sitting in my mother's room for a while. And when I decided, hey, this is going to be my next one, I couldn't find it anywhere because apparently we shared it with someone. Which, a little bit coincidentally, is a lot of what Buscaglia believes about love. He believes that it's not something you give, but something rather that you share. And so even though you might experience heartbreak or something, it's not so much that you lost love, even if you lost a love, because you still have it. He compares it to knowledge, where you could have a professor and that professor could teach his or her class everything that he or she knows, and they didn't give away that knowledge. That professor still has it for him or herself. And that's something that I think is really interesting, in part because Buscaglia was also a professor in California at a college. And at the very beginning of the book, in the author's note, in the foreword thing, he says how love has always been such a big thing for him, and finding love and feeling love and individuality when it comes to love. And when he decided to start a class, everyone made fun of him. They all ridiculed him and said, oh, like, what are you gonna talk about? How are you gonna grade? And so he came up with this class that was pure, attendance was voluntary. There weren't any grades, is my understanding. I'm not even sure if it was for credit, but it became so popular because all of these kids were able to come together and talk about something that's just so central to all of our lives. And yet, oftentimes, it's underrated. And I think some of that is because we tend to throw around the word love. Like, I remember I was having a discussion I think it was in middle school, about love actually, not the movie, great one though. And whomever the speaker was, they said, you know, there's pizza love. Like, oh, I love pizza, or I love this TV show. But that's not really love. And what I think is really interesting about this book is, for one, it's not like an analysis on love. It's not really a philosophical exploration of love. It's not scientific. It's just anecdotes and observations, and well, really that's about it. That's what it is. It's taking one's experience as an individual and an experience is shared with others about this subject and talking about it. And I think that's really important because it is something that's often overlooked. And when we think about love, a lot of times we think about, you know, Disney princesses and their happily ever after, or you think of Love Actually, or other rom-coms, or even romantic dramas. Actually, in taking a break from reading this book, I found myself watching a couple of videos where these marriage therapists were analyzing Disney and movie relationships and just seeing how compatible and realistic they are. And so I think it's just been a topic that's kind of been on my mind recently, like what it is. And I really like some of his observations in here. Like Buscaglia, at one point he says, let me find it. He says, love and the self are one, and the discovery of either is the realization of both. So for him, even though love is shared, love is very much an internal thing. And I mean, you always hear from Cosmo or from your best friend or those romantic movies that you can't love someone else without loving yourself. And I think that's mostly true, because love is innate, but it takes time and a little bit of self-exploration to realize how you love and to realize how much love that you have to give. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, at the very beginning of a relationship, you're so excited and you really like the other person and everything is happy and exciting and awesome. And then at the end of the relationship or after the relationship, it's the complete opposite. And so at the beginning, you have all this love to give and you have all this attention and affection and you want to give all of that. And at the end, you just kind of turn into like a sad little like emotion ball. And maybe you don't even want to be an emotion ball. So you just like pretend that emotions don't exist, which frankly is really sad because they're so important to you. Which kind of brings me to another part of the book that I really like, and it's right at the beginning where he's talking about what the opposite of love is, and he says, you know, a lot of people think the opposite of love is hate. But hate is still an emotion. Hate is still a feeling. Like, if you hate someone, which I hope you don't, but if you hate someone or if you hate something, at least you're feeling something for them. But he says that the antithesis of love is actually apathy. It's the complete absence of feeling. And so one of his other lines of thought where he talks about how you grow in love and you change with love. And since life is a constant change, so does love. And he talks about too how when you acknowledge that and you accept that, you tend to be happier. And it's really hard on one hand, because when you're happy and when you're living in love and sharing your love and growing in love, people dismiss you. It gets back to the thing that I said at the very beginning of this vlog. Like, people tend to underrate love, and they see it as kind of silly and frivolous. Like, it's something that like a young schoolgirl likes, or like the poets like. And yes, it's real, but it's not as important. And so you're dismissed and written off as a hopeless romantic. But that's not fair, because since it's something that's so important and so ingrained in us, it's a huge part of our life. And so to ignore that would be to ignore part of one's identity. On the other hand, he says, no, don't get me wrong, like, you shouldn't just blindly let love dictate all of your actions and lull yourself into a false sense of security. Like, bad things do happen in the world, but it's how you react to them. It's whether you react with anger and frustration and angst, or if you try to find the positive, and if you try to react better to it. And so I think it's just really interesting how he brings up the argument, and here I'll use argument, that it's so easy to get caught up in the negativity, as the Prison Break show T-Bag said, to get caught in the captivity of negativity. But it's so much more fulfilling if you live life with positivity and with love. Which brings me to another quote that he says, when man has love, he is no longer at the mercy of forces greater than himself, for he himself becomes the powerful force. Like, how cool is that? I mean, especially going back to the example earlier of how when you're starting out a relationship and everything's great, and it's like the Lego movie when he's singing the Everything is Awesome song and you're just so happy and you want to give all this love, and then at the end, sometimes love does let you down. Sometimes you let it, and it's not even that you let it lead you down the wrong path, but you find yourself on a path without love, and you're sad, and it hurts, and then you think, and maybe it's before you end that relationship or you feel that you're without love, or during, or both, that realization, I guess. But he says that all deterrents to love are man-made. And I think that's just so true. I've talked to Emily, my sister and director, about this a couple times in the last couple days, and I can't remember who said it, but there was this philosopher or someone who said, you know, I was afraid of all of these things, and none of them happened to me. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people face with love, is they think that love has to be this big, all-consuming, commitment requiring thing, and it's not. It's finding who you are. It's accepting your vulnerabilities, and it's sharing that with others. You always hear all the time that to truly love someone, so not pizza love, but to truly love someone, you have to love them warts and all. Not just the good, but also the less than good. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up, because they either aren't willing to love other people's warts, or they don't love their own, or they think that other people won't love theirs, and so they cut them off, and then they end up trying to hold on to love so tight that, as Buscaglia says, they end up only holding themselves, because they've lost sense of what love really is. So this kind of turned more into like my thoughts running alongside Buscaglia's thoughts on love, while kind of also talking about some of the discussions within the book itself. So, long story short, just cut to this part, unless you want to hear all my thoughts about it, which, like, I would really appreciate it if you did. But if you're gonna read any book that I recommend, read this one. Because whether or not you're a hopeless romantic, whether or not you're a cynic of love, this book, I feel, and you can't disagree with how I feel, because that's my own feeling, that's my own love, and I hope that you share it with me. But I feel that this book has the capability of touching something deep within your spiritual, emotional side. And it will likely either reinforce your own ideas of love or make you think of love in new ways. And love is growth, love is change, so we could all use some of that. So that's Love by Leo Buscaglia. I absolutely adored it, and you should definitely check it out. My next book is The Yogi Code by Yogi Cameron. I am on day 50 something, I think, 51, 52-ish as of recording this video, of doing yoga every day, and I found that I really enjoy it, and it's really helped me kind of clear my mental state in this COVID crisis-y world. And so I was given this book a little while ago, and I started to check it out. But I am going to finish it, and I'm so excited to share my thoughts on it with you. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again next week.